Adi or no, as president or something by the can. Nijina say Akan as Tescon president say John Dramani Mahama only youth no at heart. The only thing on ordering is Daniel Mampini. The youth is demanding, Yejina demanded say there should be a clear action plan of the 24-hour economy. And employment in public sectors, no, there should be something that should be done about it.
Good afternoon, members of the press, distinguished guests, students and fellow citizens of Ghana. On behalf of the Tertiary Students Confederacy of the MPP at the Accra Tech University, we extend our gratitude for your presence here today. We gather not out of convenience, but out of necessity, driven by a collective frustration and deep concern over the direction of governance, accountability, and the future of Ghanaians. Our address today is rooted in facts, fueled by the lived realities of students and the youth, and anchored by our unwavering commitment to truth and national development. In the run-up of the 2024 general elections, President John Dramani Mahama, beyond the 200-page manifesto, shared a 120-day contract social document in which he pledged to deliver several interventions within his first 4 months as president. May 5th, 2025, marks the 120th day of his administration. And as part of our promises projected, your first 120 days has been uninspiring, and we, the youth of the New Patriotic Party, believe the troubling matters are getting more. On the matter of democracy, the president is taking intended or unintended roots at the core of Ghana's democracy. These are some of the promises as part of the 26 promises made by the President Mahama, in which he hasn't fulfilled. Within the first 120 days in office, he said he will review taxes and levies on vehicle and equipment imported into the country for industrial and agricultural purposes. There was no mention of plans to implement such promises in the 2025 budget presented by the Finance Minister. I'll first start by the broken promises on free tuition, 1,100 students and persons living with disabilities. In a much publicized move, the government announced the allocation of 499.8 million Ghana cedis to support first-year students in public tertiary institutions under a no academic fee policy. This process was celebrated as a bold and progressive step, one that offered struggling families and vulnerable students a glimmer of hope amid rising living costs and economic pressure. For 1,100 students, especially those from the economically disadvantaged backgrounds, the promise of free tuition brought relief. Many enrolled in the universities with the understanding that the government's support would cover their academic fees. Acting in good faith, these students took loans, delayed other financial commitments, and made painful sacrifices, all with the belief that help was on its way. But months have passed, and the financial support remained phantom promise. There has been no reimbursements, no clarifications, and no sense of urgency from authorities. Students continue to face eviction threats, denial of access of academic resources, and in some cases, disqualification from writing exams due to unpaid fees. Even more disheartening is the government's unfulfilled promise to provide free tertiary education for persons living with disabilities. And this is one of the things that even sounds so sad. The president took such opportunity during his manifesto to move forward to even promise persons with disability. Such promises to people with disability clearly state how the president only thought about his political ambition to become president and never thought about the will of persons with disability. And that is why he even went ahead and more further to even promise those who are disabled. And that is wrong, Mr. President. This was not just a policy. It was a public declaration of inclusivity and equity for students living with disabilities who already face physical, social, and systematic barriers. The promise of free tertiary education was a long overdue act of justice. Yet, like many other promises, it has not materialized. Students with disability continue to be subjected to the same financial struggles, often compounded by additional medical and accessibility-related expenses. The government's inaction here goes beyond neglect. It is a failure of conscience. This is not just disappointing, it is a betrayal of trust. It disharnesses the aspirations of thousands of young Ghanaians and undermines the very principles of social justice and accountability. Education is not a privilege, it is a right. A government that claims patronizes youth and inclusivity cannot continue to make promises it has no intention of keeping. And then one thing that I believe is that the free tuition that the president added as part of his 120 days social contract was only a way to deceive and then to buy votes from innocent citizens of this country. There are a lot of families out there who made up the point or took decisions to even enroll their kids even in the next academic year. But because of the free tuition that President John Dramani Mahama added to his 120 days social contract, people had to go and take loans. People had to go and sell important items just to fund their kids. But all these things finally landed as ways of deceiving Ghanaians in his way to become president. NDC's contradictory promises of ending double track were Ghanaians misled for votes. In the lead-up of the 2020 elections, the NDC, under the leadership of the former President John Dramani Mahama, made a firm and a clear promise to abolish the double-track system introduced under the Free Senior High School. Sorry, the lead-up of the 2024 elections, not 2020. This promise was not vague or conditional. It was a headline commitment echoed across campaign platforms, media engagements, and the party's own manifesto. The NDC criticized a double-track system as a sign of poor planning and inadequate infrastructure, arguing that it disrupted the academic calendar. So this was their own words. During the day of President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the double track was one of the initiative from the Ghana Education Service that they implemented, but then it was intended to improve when we came or when we had power in the just ended general election. But because of political power, because of political deception, the NDC added such policy as part of their policies, and also 100 days and 20 days in their social contract. The NDC criticized the double-track system as a sign of poor planning and inadequate infrastructure, arguing that it disrupted the academic calendar, reduced contract hours, placed stress on teachers and students, and diluted the quality of secondary education. The pledge to swiftly phase it out and replace it with a well-planned, infrastructure-backed single-track system that would restore normalcy and enhance learning outcome. This promise gave hope to many Ghanaians, parents and educators who were frustrated by the challenges of the system. Ghanaians were assured by several high-ranking members of the NDC of swift and decisive action. Johnson Esiedu Nketia, the then General Secretary and now the Chairman of the NDC, confidently told Ghanaians the system would be ended within the 90 days of the NDC assuming office. That was in 2020 general elections. Dr. Clement Apak, then member of the Education Committee of Parliament and now Deputy Minister of Education, re-echoed this commitment, reinforcing the party's one-year timeline. These statements were made before the elections and served as a central campaign message used to secure the trust and vote of students, parents, and teachers across the country. However, post-elections, the tone and the timeline have drastically shifted. Recently, the Honorable Haruna Idrisu, the Education Minister, stated that the double-track system will now be phased by 2027. This is a total deception into power. The youth of Ghana have totally been deceived by the National Democratic Congress. And we as the youth will stand to make sure we make them accountable to each and every policy that was stated in their manifesto. We cannot be misled, we cannot be deceived, and we are rising as youth to protect our rights and to protect whatever that is due us. This dramatic shift raises serious questions about credibility, transparency, political integrity. Was there ever a realistic plan to end this double track within the timeline promised? Or were these campaign messages crafted merely to exploit public frustration and to win votes? And this is what we've witnessed by the National Democratic Congress. We have been totally deceived. 120 days of deception, 120 days of sorrow, 120 days of full deception. And we, as Tescon ATU, are ready to rise and to make sure the National Democratic Congress is being held accountable. Doomsor, how long must Ghanaians wait? Ghanaians were promised change, relief, and bold action, especially in the areas of education and infrastructure. Yet today we are confronted not only with broken promises on ending the double-track system, but also a resurgence of doomsor, an unrelenting power crisis that is crippling lives, businesses, and education across the country. Doomsor is back. The king of Doomsor, John Dramani Mahama, is back, and it is hitting us hard. The erratic power cuts, now occurring frequently across all regions, have become a daily nightmare. These blackouts are not just an inconvenience. They are destroying livelihoods, undermining productivity, and derailing the future of Ghanaians' youth. Students are unable to study effectively. In an age where most academic research and assignments require stable internet and electricity, Dumsor is turning libraries into dark rooms, and that is so funny, and rendering online learning impossible. Students are preparing for exams, are forced to revise under candlelight or miss deadline due to system shutdown. Youth entrepreneurs and small business owners, especially those in digital services, saloons, cold stores, printing shops, and welding, are losing money, client opportunities. Generators are costly and income is shrinking. That is the effect of Dumsor back under the administration of President John Dramani Mahama. And the youth of Ghana, Tescon ATU and Tescon at large, is rising to ask John Dramani Mahama to make sure Dumsor is being taken care of. Startups and creative industries, which are largely youth-driven, are being suffocated by these power outages. Content creators can't edit or upload their works. We have a lot of content creators and bloggers here because of Dumsor. Whenever they come out to have a content and they are back home to edit stuff, Dumsor just comes and then they are unable to proceed. And this is something that we need to look at. Content creators can't edit or upload work. Designers can't meet deadlines. Seamstresses can't operate machines. Dumsor is not just a technical problem, it's a youth unemployment accelerator. Hospitals and essential services are being affected too. Fridges with vaccines, emergency care equipment, and medical diagnostics all depend on steady electricity. When the lights go out, so does the safety of Ghanaians. And to add up the insult of injury, the Public Utilities Regulation Commission, PRC, recently approved a 14.75% increment in electricity tariffs. We ask, how can you raise tariffs when there is no power? And one thing that as the youth and as president of Atu Tescon University have been observed, the promises to cancel such taxes, such as the e-levies, the betting taxes, was just a strategy. And this strategy, watching Honorable Samuel Uku made in his statement that such taxes that were cancelled was as a way to accumulate and to increase it, putting a burden on electricity and water. So looking at his calculations or looking at the taxes that were cancelled, when you sum all up, it is even more lower than what we're experiencing. That is the 14.75 increment on electricity combined. We have been deceived. The government continues to deny, to deflect, leaving citizens in dark, literally and figuratively. Our message to the president is that fix it now. We call on President John Dramani Mahama and his administration to stop silence, spin and blame games. The time for excuses is over. The Ghanaian people are suffering, and the youth are losing faith in the very institution meant to support them. We demand a public load shedding timetable so citizens can plan their lives and businesses. The 24-hour economy, a promise that missed its marks. The 24-hour economy policy was touted by the government as a transformative initiative that would propel Ghana into a new era of economic productivity and job creation. The narrative surrounding this policy suggested that by allowing businesses to operate around the clock, the country would generate employment opportunities, attract investment, and elevate Ghana's global standing. And we all know how the 24-hour economy was their main manifesto and their main policy that they wanted to initiate, giving the intention or giving the impression that they are the only government or they have the solution to employment. But what happened? There was a mass dismissal. A mass dismissal that hit the country. A mass dismissal that took a lot of people into sorrow. The president of the Republic of Ghana promised a 24-hour economy, promised the youth of Ghana, promised the whole nation, and because of that, people queued to vote for him. The 24-hour economy has just been a fallacy. The 24-hour economy is just a major deceptive and a major deception policy to gain public trust and to gain votes from ordinary Ghanaians. Dismissal going contrary to promising a 24-hour economy that will create employment, and instead becoming the president, being sworn in office, a mass dismissal occurred. And we are telling the president, the youth that have been dismissed from their workplace are crying, are becoming jobless, and these same youths will go out there to engage in crime because he has taken away their main income from them. We are asking the president, John Dramani Mahama, to rethink about this decision and to give the youth back their employment. However, months since the swearing in of the president, the policy remains unlaunched, and the policy document is nowhere to be seen. What was once presented as a critical plan to modernize Ghana's economy is now nothing more than a distant hope shrouded in confusion and lack of clarity. In the meantime, the hope of job creation through this initiative has turned into disappointment. Rather than witnessing an expansion of employment, many Ghanaians have been faced with mass layoff, particularly in the public sector. These cuts have directly impacted thousands of public workers, leaving them without income, security, and job prospects. The 24-hour economy was supposed to be a beacon of progress, offering expanded opportunities for the youth, entrepreneurs, and industries, particularly in sectors like manufacturing, services, and retail. Yet, despite the grand promise, there has no clear strategy. Strategy, yamutu, strategy, ewu. There is no clear strategy. There is nothing even like the 24-hour economy. Until now, a clear plan has not even been initiated. A clear plan has not even been brought forward to Parliament. And this is sad. And the youth of Ghanaian rising up to demand accountability in respect to the 24-hour economy from the President, John Dramani Mahama. While we understand that policy implementation takes time, the lack of action and transparency regarding the 24-hour economy initiative has both alarming and disappointing. What was supposed to be a well-thought-out plan is now simply a vague concept that fails to materialize. Worse still, while we understand that policy implementation takes time, the lack of action and transparency regarding the 24-hour economy initiative has been both alarming and disappointing. What was supposed to be a well-thought-out plan is now simply a vague concept that fails to materialize. Worse still, public sector's workers are left to cope with the effect of austerity measures, while the youth and businesses are forced to deal with the fallout of government that has made unable to deliver on its promises. The fact that there is still no policy document, no concrete details, and no official announcement about how the policy will be structured or rolled out suggests that this ambitious plan may have been more about political posturing than actual policy execution. The country needs real, practical policies that are grounded in reality. The 24-hour economy policy, as it stands, is a far-fetched dream that has failed to provide any roadmap or tangible benefit to the people it promised to help. And in the meantime, students, workers, and businesses are suffering the consequences of a government that continues to delay the launch of the policies that are meant to change the lives of ordinary Ghanaians. Suppression of free speech, an alarming trend, undermines youth confidence. In a disturbing escalation of state power, the recent raid on the home of Reverend Ntim Fojo and the arrest of outspoken activist Okatechi Efrifa have sent shockwaves through Ghana's democratic community. This act clearly targeting individuals for expressing dissenting views are an affront to freedom guaranteed under Ghana's constitution and a direct threat to the foundational values of democracy. Tescon ATU strongly condemns this act. In any democratic society, and I repeat, in any democratic society, free speech, dissent, and whistleblowing are not crimes. These are never crimes. They are livelihood of accountability and civic participation. Whistleblowing in particular is not a privilege to be granted at the government's convenience. It is a constitutional right and a democratic duty, especially when it exposes wrongdoing or abuse of public office. The silencing of critical voices, particularly those who speak truth to power, sends a chilling message to the entire nation, especially to the youth of Ghana, who have always stood at the forefront of advocacy, reform, and national progress. Young Ghanaians are watching. We are witnessing a political climate where freedom of expression is increasingly criminalized and boldness is punished instead of reward. This creates a dangerous precedent, one in which our generation is being conditioned to fear rather than to lead. Now, what message does it send to? One, the young journalist who wants to investigate corruption. Young journalists are now scared to even express their freedom of speech. Young journalists and activists are scared even if something is going wrong or even if an act from the government goes wrong. There is fear and panic in the youth of Ghana. And as the youth, we are demanding that the President, John Dramani Mahama, looks into this and give each and every Ghanaian freedom of speech, as our constitution states. Second, what message does this send to the student leader who wants to organize peaceful protest or campus? So as a student leader like myself, because of fear and panic, I'll be so scared to even stand in front to address the press. And this is where our democracy has gotten to. This is where the democracy of Ghana has gotten to, putting fear and panic in the youth of this country, in activists, and in young journalists. Thirdly, the activists who dream of holding government accountability. Instead of nurturing active citizenship, this environment threatens to breed apathy, silence, and fear, and that is a recipe of democratic collapse. As youth, we deserve a country where speaking up is encouraged, not punished. Accountability is demanded, not suppressed. Criticism is welcomed, not criminalized. But the current administration, under the leadership of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, is beginning to exhibit signs of authoritarianism, cloaked in democratic rhetoric. By remaining silent, or worse, complicit in the face of these abuses, the government risks losing the moral authority it claims to uphold. Unfulfilled Galamsey promises, a national crisis betraying the youth of this country. During the 2024 election campaign, President John Dramani Mahama and the National Democratic Congress vowed to wage a decisive and intelligent war against illegal mining, popularly known as Galamsey. Their promises struck a chord of Ghanaians, especially mining-affected communities, where polluted rivers, destroyed farmlands, and collapsing ecosystems have become a daily reality. Yet 4 months into the administration, the silence and inaction to speak louder than any promise on the campaign trail, let us be clear, is worse than ever. The NDC promised to deploy artificial intelligence, AI, monitoring systems that detect and track illegal mining activities in real time. No such system have been deployed. To arrest the kingpins, the financiers, and the political backers of Galamsey, not the desperate young workers at the bottom of the chain. Yet the big players remain untouchable, while poor youth are criminalized. To repeal legislative instrument LI 2462, which permits mining in our forest reserve, but today the bill is in Parliament to be rather amended. So the legislative instrument, which is the LI 2462, is currently in Parliament, which is even about to be amended. President John Dramani Mahama, you promised in 120 days to find solutions to Galamsey. The youth of this country, Tescon ATU, and Tescon as a whole, and the youth wing of the New Patriotic Party is demanding that action needs to be taken as soon as possible. Galamsey needs to be stopped, and the kingpins of the National Democratic Congress need to be arrested and need to be dealt with accordingly. to declare a national state of emergency in areas most affected by illegal miners, acknowledging the crisis as an environmental and human disaster. No such emergency has been declared. Instead, what are we seeing is businesses as usual. While the rivers run creamy with chemicals, while our forests are reduced wastelands, and while young people are left to no land to farm, the clean water, drink, and no future is inherent. Let us be clear. The failure to act on Galamsey is not just environmental negligence. It is a direct attack on the youth development and intergenerational equity. Youth in mining communities are exposed to toxic mercury and cyanide, leading to a long-term health issues, including birth defects, respiratory diseases, and neurological damages. Our agricultural lands are being destroyed, leaving the next generation within barren soil and food crisis that will hit the poor the hardest. Water bodies are used by schools, clinics, and the entire towns are now unsafe because of Galamsey, depriving youth of clean drinking water and threatening of public health. This is the causes of Galamsey in this current administration. And the President, John Dramani Mahama, needs to rise up to stop Galamsey. Fellow Ghanaians, the time for silence is over. The time for excuses has long passed. The NDC must understand that the people of Ghana did not vote for promises. They voted for protection, for prosperity, and for a future. We, the youth of Ghana, students, workers, and entrepreneurs, are no longer willing to be spectators, and we are not going to be spectators. As the youth wing of the new Patriotic Party and Tescon at large, we are not going to be spectators. We are going to hold the government accountable. We demand accountability. We demand action, and we demand it now. We call on President John Dramani Mahama and his administration to immediately, and I read, we call on President John Dramani Mahama and his administration to immediately fulfill all promises made to students, including the no academic fee policy for level 100 students and free tertiary education for persons living with disability. Recently, there was a communique out there that level 100 students, to fill a portal, they should go into the portal and then fill their names so that the money can be reimbursed to them. I stand here as a youth leader and as the president of Tescon, Accra Tekan University, that this was not the agreement given to level 100 students across public universities in Ghana. The president has to act swiftly. The president should stop mind games. The president should just go straight to the point. If level 100s are not going to receive a refund of their fees, it should go straight to them. And the mind games of filling portals is not something that would be bought by the youth of this country. Also, there is a need to present a clear and enhanced roadmap to abolish the double-track system, not in 2027, but now, because education cannot wait. As part of their campaign promises, they said the double-track system by the new Patriotic Party is not the best. They had a solution. They had a solution to the double-track system, which is the gold and the green. They had a solution to whatever double-track system has got to do with. But now the Honorable Henry Idisu, the education minister, is now promising that the double track system will be cancelled in 2027. President John Dramani Mahama and the education minister, this is the time to end double track system as said in your manifesto and as part of your 120 days social contract to the youth of Ghana. There should be a published load shedding timetable. Fix the power crisis, which is doomsday, with urgency, and to stop the deception. Withdraw the 14.75% electricity tariff increase until stable supply is guaranteed. There is doomsday strike in our nation, and you further go on to increase electricity tariffs by 14.75%. President John Dramani Mahama, you promised that Canaan. You promised that a land with milk and honey. Now what are we experiencing? We are experiencing sorrow. We are experiencing deception. We are experiencing lies. We are experiencing all sorts of calamities in this country. And all this was as a result to deceive the ordinary Ghanaian, to get votes and to win political power and to become the president. We as the youth of Ghana, we as Tescon ATU, we as Tescon as part of the youth wing of the new Patriotic Party, we are standing and we are asking that the electricity tariff, as far as doomsday has struck the city, the 14.75 electricity tariff increment until stable supply is guaranteed. It is both unjust and unacceptable to pay more for less. Ghanaians deserve transparency and light, not darkness and propaganda. So imagine a woman who has a cold store business, struck with doomsday day in, day out. And on top of that, there had been an increment of 14.75% on electricity tariff. You cancelled the e-levy, you cancelled betting tax, and you did all this just to please Ghanaians. If the president really meant to cancel all these taxes, which is the e-levy and the betting tax, 14.75 increment on electricity tariff shouldn't have even occurred. It shouldn't have even crossed their mind to increase it as a sad higher. We are demanding accountability. We are asking the President John Dramani Mahama that 14.75 electricity tariff increment is a no-no, and as such, it needs to be reduced. He should declare a national state of emergency in the most affected districts to mobilize resources and a fast-track environmental rehabilitation and implement the other policies he promised to roll out to fight galamsey. He should launch the 24-hour economy, the mighty 24-hour economy. The policy that was about to bring milk and honey, the policy that was about to bring a second Canaan to this country. This policy is a policy that will create more employment for the youth of Ghana. So the youth is demanding an immediate launch of the 24-hour economy with a policy document. We are asking the President John Dramani Mahama to launch the 24-hour economy because graduates are suffering, graduates have become unemployed, and because of the 24-hour economy, graduates went all out to vote for the president, and now this has turned into mind games and this has turned into deception. Ghanaians are asking for a policy document, a timetable, and a real engagement, not empty slogans. Ghanaians need job, not just headlines. His Excellency John Dramani Mahama sees the targeted suppression of free speech and dissent and immediately end political harassment of activities and critics, restore the integrity of our democracy, and protect the constitutional rights of all citizens. To the youth of Ghana, Tescon ATU, Tescon in general, the youth wing of the new patriotic party, calls on you to rise, not with violence, but with vigilance. Let your voices be heard on campuses, be heard in communities and constituencies. Let us hold our leaders to account. Let us organize, let us mobilize, and demand the country we deserve. We must stand together for truth over propaganda, service over slogans, actions over excuses, freedom over fear. We are the generation that will not be silenced. We are the generation that will not forget. And we are the generation that will shape Ghana's tomorrow by demanding today. Fix the promises, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. Fix the power, fix Dumso, fix the system. Reinstate every employment contract that have been given to the youth. And also, the youth are watching, and we are not going anywhere. Thank you, and may God bless our homeland Ghana and make our nation great and strong. Thank you very much. Omai, your own mind. Please, I want this song. Omai, your own mind. And 20 days of hardship, 120 days of deception, 120 days of sorrow. The youth of this country are asking the president that this first 120 days, you have disappointed us. We are in sorrow. We are heartbroken. President John Dramani Mahama, the youth is asking you that please and please, we ask you come to our rescue. Thank you very much, the press. Thank you very much, Ghana. Thank you very much, Tescon. Thank you very much, the youth wing of the new patriotic party. God bless you and God bless our homeland, Ghana. Thank you.